many of you know me. I'm the Dean of the College of Business, Bill Harden, and I want to thank everyone for coming. This program that we're doing, the Wertheim Lecture Series, is a legacy associated with Dr. Herbert Wertheim. If you have been anywhere on our campus here at FIU, you will see the Wertheim name. Okay, so the Wertheims and Dr. Wertheim, who has had a great career as a clinician, entrepreneur, working in the medical area, is also well known for being a major philanthropic entity unto himself, one of the most philanthropic people in Florida. So we're thankful for him for funding this. We have an endowment that generates resources for us to do this event. The goal of the event is to introduce our students in our alumni base and the FIU community to world-class leaders in business. People who have shown integrity, people who have had leadership positions, people who've worked in innovative companies, and who are also engaged in the community. Because part of what you need to do as a leader in business is be engaged with the community and give back to the community, because we're all better when we have a high quality of life and our community benefits from the resources we provide. So luckily for me, we don't have to search very hard at FIU to find leaders who are graduates of FIU who meet the criteria for this lecture series. Our speaker tonight is Francis Hondal. Francis has 2 degrees from FIU, a BBA and an MBA, both in the College of Business. You're supposed to clap, College of Business, okay. And as I've told many of the students I met in the last week or two in talking about the event, I said, you know, you don't understand until you've been in business when you see someone's title and it says their title is President of Loyalty and Engagement for Mastercard. Let me tell you what that means. That means you're in the C-suite, you're on the management committee, you're making decisions for one of the top financial corporations in the world, okay? And not only is Francis involved and have been involved in the financial services area, she also has served FIU in various capacities, in leadership capacities on the Board of Trustees, on our foundation board, in the past on the Dean's Council in the College of Business, and also is on 2 corporate boards. So if you're a student in here, this may be the only time or one of the few times in your career that you're in the room with someone who is on the board of directors of not just 1, but 2 publicly traded companies, Bath and Body Works and Equitable. So don't take it for granted as a student, because this is a special event to bring in globally recognized leaders. And once again, luckily for us, in the College of Business, we have our own alumna, Francis Hondal, doing this. I think we're ready to get started on Francis's presentation here. I just want to make one last thing is, after we have the presentation, we'll do a Q&A, and we'll continue the reception afterwards. And we're going to recognize the great opportunity we're having tonight. So I'd like to invite Francis Hondal to come up here, and we'll get going there. So thanks, Francis.
Thank you for the invitation, and certainly that very warm introduction. I'm going to go off and on with my glasses because I can't see afar, but I need them to read some of my notes. First of all, it's always such a pleasure to be back on campus. The campus has changed quite a bit since I was an undergraduate and graduate student, but nonetheless, it continues to have the warmth of Panther Nation, so it's always great to be here and spend time with students, alumni, and really the community at large. So before I begin, and this is the topic, CCO, I kind of want to get a sense of who's in the room. It helps me tailor a few of the comments throughout a little bit better and just make sure it's more relatable. So can I show hands on students who are still currently enrolled students? Okay, absolutely love that. Alumni? Okay, great, quite a bit. And then faculty, admin, and all other. All right, awesome. All right, perfect. All right, so that's super helpful. What I'm going to try to do is give you a synopsis of 35 years in about 35 minutes, okay? That's the goal here today. Because I am super interested to make sure that we have enough time for Q&A. As Bill said, I think it's a great opportunity for all of you, especially all of you who are students, to be able to have access to someone who obviously has had a long-term corporate career, but also serves on the public boards. So please start getting those questions ready, because I'm super excited about that. Let's see, because let's see how this is going to work here today. Okay, that's the same slide. We're going to do that. So look, here's what I plan to do. Take you through a number of different moves, what I call pivotal moves in my career in the journey. So you get a sense for what were some of the opportunities, what were some of the challenges, what was the rationale behind some of the moves that I made, and how did it all sort of land? I guess you know the punchline, so I guess it couldn't have been too bad. Some of the learnings to share. Obviously everyone's career journey is slightly different, but there are some elements, some principles that I think would be important to share with all of you, and hopefully it would resonate. And then talk a bit about actually leading in business. So sort of the first half is my career and how I navigated corporate. And then there's a bit around, well, as a leader in the business environment, sort of how have you tackled the opportunities and challenges of managing a business, specifically in financial services over the last 30 plus years. And then we'll open it up. All right? So let me start by saying that I have been incredibly fortunate to build a career that I truly love. One that has challenged me. It has really enabled me to develop personal and professional growth. It's taken me around the world to a number of really amazing places. And it's given me the opportunity to manage great businesses within large and complex organizations. And along the way, and I think this is probably the best part, I've actually formed some amazing lifelong friendships along the way since day one. In my first job at a college, which I'll mention was Barnett Bank, should anybody have been around Miami way back when, okay? So like many, my career has not followed necessarily a straight path. It's been a journey. It's been a journey filled with a few twists and turns, a lot of moments of great success, but certainly a lot of challenges that tested me personally and professionally. So in hindsight, I see a few pivotal moves that shaped my trajectory, moves that ultimately positioned me to step into this chapter that I'm currently enjoying at the moment. So, and you heard board leadership for sure, but something that I have an incredible passion for, which is why I stay very close to FIU, is to help expand educational opportunities for students, and very specifically, first-generation students, which I am myself, and many of you in this room are probably as well. I very much enjoy coaching and mentoring at all career levels, and I'll have a little bit more time for that now. And of course, spending more time with family and friends and hobbies that I love. And Alan, who is sitting here in the front row, my board of trustee, knows that we love the Keys, and we hang out there every once in a while. So today, what I'm hoping is that, I can spark some ideas that will help you will help motivate you, to take the next step You're probably thinking about what direction to go. Many of you, I've heard, are seniors. Some of you are not there yet. Some of you have jobs lined up, and some of you are thinking, what am I going to do next? So hopefully this sparks a bit of, inspiration so that you can make that next decision. Keeping in mind that the context that I will share is context that of someone who's worked in Fortune 500 companies for the last 30 years. But I think and I hope that some of my experiences and some of my lessons learned would still apply even for those of you who are entrepreneurs, working in smaller companies, and pursuing just different avenues, because I think some of these elements, frankly, hold true throughout. So as you heard, I started my career in banking through a management training program and later transitioned into commercial lending. After about 4 years, I realized banking was just not for me. You might be surprised why, so I'm going to go ahead and tell you why. I didn't enjoy cold calling at all. That was really hard. And I didn't think I would be a great salesperson, a great relationship person. So what I enjoyed most of my years in training was credit and risk management. And so that was where I found my passion in banking. But to be honest with you, it wasn't that exciting, okay? And so I had a deep desire to enter the field, the international arena, and join a global firm. And that was both inspired by my father, who owned his export company, primarily focused to Latin America. And believe it or not, it was also inspired by my experience here in the College of Business in the International Business Program. The case studies, they really piqued my interest. They were a lot of fun. And I thought, how fun would it be to have a career where you're trying to navigate so many elements, from geopolitical elements to cultural, social, and I thought, now that could be a really fun career. But this is the early 1990s, and Miami wasn't exactly the hub for multinational firms. And so I thought my dreams may not be able to be realized, but then there's the power of your network. And so through a colleague and my part of our network, I joined American Express as a financial analyst within the Latin American Caribbean division. I just realized I have to keep going here. Okay, there you go. Okay. That was my first pivotal move. Shifting, from a local business, the bank, but staying within the financial services spectrum, and joining American Express's Latin America division. And that being really the entry point of a long-term career in the international arena. And I have to tell you, I've never looked back. It's been so much fun and very, very rewarding. So over the next 7 years, I progressed through various finance roles, and this is where my second important pivotal career move took place. I moved from finance to leading one of our consumer businesses as general manager. To say that was a game-changing shift is probably an understatement, but it really was a huge deal. I had spent years analyzing the ins and outs of the P&L. What were the variances? What was driving the business? What else did the sales team and marketing teams have to do, and et cetera? To now, I am the owner of the P&L. And so I went from, again, sort of an observer, to really being fully accountable. I was in my early 30s, stepping into a role that had traditionally been held by very seasoned executives. This business in particular had been struggling, both for internal and external, challenges. And therefore, being successful, taking on that role, was actually unlikely, or at least it seemed unlikely. In fact, I remember, like it happened yesterday, having colleagues come to my office and say, "You have got to be kidding. You cannot take on this job. You are putting your career at risk." And this certainly was my first experience with taking on calculated risk. I knew the role would absolutely be a stretch, but I was drawn, and it seems to have been now something consistent over the next 30 years that followed, I can tell you, to challenges and in this case, a true challenge of leading a business turnaround. Now, I had a huge advantage. I had been the CFO of this business, and so I leaned in to my financial expertise and the relationships that I had built over so many years with the sales, marketing, and operations and technology teams, and they were all behind me. I think partly because they understood that my motivations were really about really creating a catalyst for growth rather than looking for ways to continue to bring costs or take costs out of the business. I really felt there was an enormous opportunity. But more importantly, I recognized that this would be an incredible journey to develop my leadership skills at a completely different level and join the regional executive team, again, in a Fortune 200 company. So I made the decision that fear would not be my driver. I wouldn't wait for what many of us do throughout our careers until I feel like I'm ready, like I'm perfectly ready to make this move. I would treat the whole opportunity, frankly, as a learning experience and hope that it all worked out. Look, as expected, it was tough. I was young. I had come up through the finance ranks, if you will, and this was an important business role. Managing senior-level cross-functional leadership team in a highly matrix organization was no small task. And I tell you, matrix organizations were born around this time, so they're not nearly as functional as they are today if you think they're functional, okay? That was very dysfunctional. But I focused my energy on things that I can control, on finding the right talent and evolving my own leadership style. From being very operationally focused and more detail focused as a finance person to becoming a growth strategist. And I also had to learn something really important that, again, was really, I think, key to my success in the latter years, which was to influence without direct authority. Because while I managed directly the consumer business, I didn't directly manage the corporate and merchant business, which is part of American Express, but had a responsibility to bring everyone together for the big big pie. So with coaching and feedback and a lot of perseverance, we developed a new strategic direction and turned the business around. I remained in that role for almost 7 years, leading an extraordinary team and creating so many amazing, truly amazing memories. By that point, I knew it was time to move on, and the business really needed fresh perspectives. It's exhausting, after 7 years of working on a turnaround. And so there was just so much more I wasn't going to be able to come up with. And I actually think it's incredibly important to recognize when it's time to move on and pass the baton. And so at that point, I began to proactively seek my next meaningful role. The catch was that it had to be in Miami, because for my family and I, relocation was not an option. And you have to remember, this is pre-COVID, where virtual and work from home, those options did not exist at all. And so this led to my third pivotal move, which was taking on a role of leading the insurance business at American Express for Latin America. I have to be honest with you, initially, I was not excited at all because it wasn't the company's core business. And I had been in the core business throughout my entire career at American Express, and that's the card business, acquiring new consumers, figuring out new ways of engaging consumers, getting them to spend more, et cetera. And this was an adjacent business. It was a business that had high margins, and we wanted to scale across the world, but it was still the adjacent business. And so that, for some reason, didn't feel to me that it was going to be very exciting. So after speaking to a number of trusted colleagues, both inside Amex and outside, I decided to take a chance because I saw it as a bridge to future opportunities, and it would create a shift from me leading a turnaround to actually leading a business transformation. And to me, that was, again, another exciting learning opportunity. I have to tell you, it turned out to be my greatest learning experience, and I just had a ton of fun. I built an incredible team. I worked under a strong global leader, developed a new set of skills, experiences, knowledge, and know-how of the industry. I built a number of very valuable external partners that would later become very relevant as I became an entrepreneur. And then I eventually stepped into my first global leadership role. All was seemingly going really nice, very well. And then the financial crisis of 2008 hit. And for those of us who are old enough to recall, the financial services industry was literally turned upside down. The stock market was crashing, layoffs were growing, and as business leader, I had to pivot quickly. I was managing a global P&L, and we were in an investment mode up until that moment. Shutting down new businesses and restructuring was really the new focus. Having gone through something very similar after 9/11, I knew how tough the next few months would be, especially if you're a people leader. This time, in addition to having to manage the organization through this restructuring, the impact was personal. My family and I had to face a major decision, which was to relocate to our headquarters in New York or leave a company that I loved for 17 years. Well, the decision for us was very clear, and if you can picture this, we were in our island in our kitchen, my husband and I sat down, I said, okay, this has come down, it's a decision we have to make. We may have taken 30 seconds, maybe a minute, I don't know, it was very fast, where we said, nope, we're not moving. Our family comes first, and it just simply was not the right time for us to take up our kids and move to New York. And my husband, Eddie, really doesn't like New York, so I think he was trying to give it a try, but he really wasn't. I, on the other hand, was really excited at the possibility. So the next pivotal move was transitioning out of Amex, of American Express, and really preparing for an unwritten next chapter. Once I got past the heartbreak of leaving, and I will tell you, it was literally like a heartbreak. Like the emotions, the roller coaster you go through after 17 years is very serious. It's very extensive. So after you get through that sort of mourning period, it was, for me, all of a sudden the realization that this could be a really interesting opportunity. And I embraced it as such and took a very systematic approach to designing my next chapter, treating it as the most interesting and challenging chapter yet. That's how I sort of framed it for myself. I read a couple of really good books. One, Halftime, by Bob Buford. That book is about really how do you make the second half of your career, the second half of your life, even better than the first. It talks about shifting your focus from driving success to driving significance. And it was just very powerful for me because I started thinking, there's got to be something more around what type of roles, what type of career that I pursue. And then the second book, a book called Working Identity, it's about reinventing yourself and pursuing your passions rather than allowing other factors influence the direction of your career. Because oftentimes we find ourselves just sort of following what we think we're supposed to follow. We graduate from college, I got a job offer in banking, I stay in banking, and I become a banker for 50 years. The spirit of this book was really about talking about people who got off that track and said, you know what, I'm going to pursue my passions. I'm going to take a step and taking that risk and potentially taking that risk and pursue another career. So, for me, that break from Amex was something that helped me, I think, answer a few questions, which is, what do I really want to do? I would say when I grew up, but I was already, somewhere in my 40s. So I was grown up. So I invested a lot in me. And I invested in understanding my strengths, really understanding my passions, what motivated me, and really what, at the end of the day, created a competitive edge for me in the market. So I took on the opportunity and explored a lot of things, launching my own consulting firm, investing in startups, returning to corporate, and even shifting industries. And I did have a brief stint in healthcare, somewhere in between this year and a half. I also took art classes. I joined a number of nonprofit organizations in Miami, especially for underserved communities, and really got re-engaged with the community in Miami, which is something I had not done because my career was outside of Miami, if you will, as an international business leader. And so I found this reconnection back to the community amazing. I experimented with new business ventures and ultimately started a consumer consulting company with a couple of my colleagues. But ultimately, and this is a soul-searching exercise to some extent, I was a corporate leader at heart. I really thrived in building teams and really going after big challenges, big opportunities, corralling energy around making big things happen. Like, that is where I found my personal energy was really created. So I took a very structured approach to networking, which led me to, I'm hoping I'm in the right one. Okay, entrepreneurship, here we go. So I took a very structured approach to networking that led me to my next move, which was joining Mastercard as the regional executive head of products, marketing, and the consulting business, reporting directly to the global head of products, who was a direct report of the CEO. So it's one step removed from the CEO, which I have to tell you, as I was thinking about this opportunity, I faced that doubt around, am I ready? You know, that imposter syndrome that everybody at some point talks about in their career. So at this moment, I thought, can I do this? Can I really step into a role that's one step away from the CEO, back then, of a $250 billion company? It's a $500 billion company today. Was I really ready to sit at that table? And so, with a little bit of encouragement from my advisors, and I can tell you I have many of them on speed dial, and especially from my number one cheerleader, my husband, I shifted my mindset. I focused on how my experience and my natural strengths as a leader would be an asset to this organization that at that moment had just brought in a new CEO, Ajay Banga. You may have heard his name. He's a president now of the World Bank. Ajay had just become the CEO of Mastercard 6 years after the company went public. And he brought in the mindset that the company needed to become more than just a processor and a franchisor. He brought in the vision that the company's role, first of all, in society was a lot bigger and much more important. He wanted to tackle, really, cash as our competitor. And he really wanted to bring the consumer and the consumer experience as part of his organization's DNA, because he felt that that was really the way to create the next stage of growth, as it became not a processor of payments, but rather a technology and data company. And so I thought, I've built consumer businesses, I've navigated matrix organizations, and most importantly, I had a great track record of recruiting and developing top talent. So I took the leap, and if I've had other roles that have been meaningful and impactful, this one was certainly life-changing. So after spending a few years in the region, I pursued a global opportunity in a role that I helped shape. And to be very specific, I was offered a role from the region, Latin America, to the global team to backfill an existing position. For those of you who are in the card business, it's credit and debit. And I really thought about it because I was very excited about the opportunity to go back to global. But in this instance, quite honestly, the job didn't make sense. It really didn't make sense, in particular, because of where the company was going, where Ajay wanted to drive this company. So I suggested a different configuration of that job, and I gave my reasons why. And I knew that leading the job that I had created would actually help me become much more successful, because it was in my wheelhouse. I had dealt with consumer businesses, marketing, loyalty, all through my career at American Express. And I felt that that would be where I would create the most value for the company. So they agreed, And the bonus was you can have a global role and stay in Miami. How do you turn that down? Almost impossible, right? So I went to global. And then this happened. The role I took on was complex. It required substantial organizational change, a refreshed strategy, and frankly, just an improvement in its financial performance, specifically after 2 very difficult M&A integrations, one in Sydney, Australia, and one out in California. But these were challenges that I had grown accustomed to navigating, and it was, for me, a very exciting new chapter. Global P&L, that's of a very large business. But then a few months in, I faced what I consider my greatest professional failure. I underperformed during a board presentation halfway around the world in Sydney, Australia. I call this the big fail, because there's really no other way to talk about it. It was what I consider a pivotal moment that really felt like a setback to my career. So despite my extensive preparation, probably too much, because there is such a thing as over-preparing, I felt short on the execution. I had never encountered anything like this before. And in this particular case, the stakes were high. So I had 2 choices to make, because I wasn't ready to retire yet. Let it define me, or learn from it and move forward. I think you can tell what I did. So I chose the latter. Yes, my ego was bruised, brushed it off, had a very supportive team, and at the end of the day, you know, as they say, stuff happens. And so I embraced the feedback. I happened to run into the CEO that night, right after the presentation, having dinner by himself in the lobby of the hotel, and I was walking by, and I'm like, it's my moment. Like, I have to go in there. I have to talk about what just happened. It was just so extraordinary for me. And he said to me, I don't know what happened to you. Like, you're usually a really good presenter. Like, what was going on? And anyway, so you know what? We laughed it off, but I knew it was something that I had to really address, because I didn't want to lose anyone to lose confidence around my ability to manage the business. So I assessed what went wrong. I worked relentlessly and ultimately delivered very strong business results. I tell you, it's that finance person in me. It's constantly looking at the top line and the bottom line at every angle. So I was later promoted to take on the responsibility of President of Loyalty and Marketing Services, which is over a $2 billion business worldwide. And proud to say, we became the largest provider of loyalty and marketing services globally. I joined the company's management committee, as Bill said, which is a committee of the top 35 executives of the company. And 3 years later, I was back where it started, in front of the board, and I'm happy to say a very different outcome. So I was happy about that. So, as I closed that chapter successfully, I decided I was ready to move on to the next one. I was really eager to pursue public board service, unaware of how scarce these positions are and how highly selective the process is. So I met with a number of senior colleagues within Mastercard that held board positions and garnered their advice. I sat with my leader and had a very structured conversation on my development plan and how joining a board would in fact enhance my leadership development and would really bring value back to the firm, because I wanted to make sure Mastercard was all in on this new venture. And once again, I activated my network. And what that means is I told everyone, this is where I'm at, this is the chapter that I'm going to start writing, and here's what I want to do. And I would encourage you at any and every time in your career that you have decided what path you want to follow, just tell everybody about it. It's like good marketing. So after a number of conversations about potential roles, I became confident that my unique combination of financial expertise, marketing experience, and international general management gained at 2 highly respected and high-performing firms would actually give me a real shot at taking on a board role. So during COVID in 2020, I joined my first public board. It was a completely virtual interview. CEO and I just hit it off on the screen. And he was really interested in how I could bring and apply my experience at Mastercard, being a B2B to B2B business, to his business model, and yet ensure that we brought the consumer into the boardroom. That is the role I play today. I am literally the voice of the consumer in that boardroom, because otherwise everyone else is risk managers, and I moved on from that one. And then a few months later, in early 2021, Bath & Body Works invited me to join their board. And so that triggered an important decision, which was an early retirement from Mastercard, which I was more than thrilled, frankly, to do. I was happy that I had achieved what I had achieved, and they afforded me such a great opportunity, actually, for a seamless transition into this next chapter. So this next chapter really marked the realization of my ultimate professional goal. So today, I enjoy helping shape corporate strategy. I engage in talent discussions. I chair the Talent and Compensation Committee for Bath & Body Works, and I sit on the same committee at Equitable together with Audit. I love all, if you will, discussions around talent, the CEO succession, of course, and then really participate in critical industry conversations, AI, cyber, digital, consumer, et cetera. And at the same time, I'm looking for opportunities to pay it forward, like this one, where sharing my experience may inspire someone to take action or at least provide some clarity. I know I have about 5 minutes left, which I'll start wrapping up. So while no career paths are the same, let me go to this one here, start here. While no career path is the same, here are a few guiding principles that help me. First and foremost, it really is about defining your vision, your own personal vision, and get ready to own your development plan. I cannot tell you how often in my experience of leading people were just waiting for their bosses to come in and start the conversation on their behalf. Not a great start. Own your development plan and stay in the driver's seat at all times. Certainly, it is incredibly important to bring people around you, advisors. I call them my personal board of directors. Surround yourself with people who will push you forward, people who would be honest, and important, people who would help you build confidence to make some of those tough decisions along the road. And as far as development is concerned, my main advice, I guess it's just because this is what I did, I never chased a specific title. I just chased impact. Like, that was what I was going for. I was going for really driving impact in the organizations that I had the opportunity to lead people. So accept the stretch assignment. Temporary assignments, special projects is just such a great way to expand your skills and your network. Of course, network, and more network, which is great because this team seems to be certainly on that note. And I call networking it is not a hobby, it is a sport. You have to build your skills. You have to build and sustain a strong network at all times, and that takes effort. It takes deliberate and a systematic approach. Every opportunity that I talked about today, every single one from my first job, probably even before that, was as a result of a relationship that I nurtured, where someone knew what I was aiming to accomplish and then advocated on my behalf. Next, kind of one of the obvious, but I always like to put it up here because, again, you'd be surprised, people are expecting certain things out of their career, and then when you ask them, well, tell me a little bit about what you've done and how you've delivered, it becomes a little bit of a not so great conversation. So while this sounds obvious, delivering results, especially in business, is the foundation of building credibility. It is the foundation of building your reputation. But as I tell people, it's not just about delivering results within your vertical or within your silo. It's really about looking left and right and figuring out ways for you to become a much bigger enterprise leader, much bigger impact. That's what everyone is looking for. A growth mindset. A growth mindset is the belief that your abilities improve with effort and persistence. There is a way to develop your skills. That's the good news. You got to work at it. It encourages you to embrace some challenges, learn from some of the setbacks, and keep developing your skills. And also, I will tell you, as someone who has a growth mindset, and I say that not because I'm declaring it myself, it's what my team has always said about me, because I think about the possibilities. I think about, really not thinking about constraints, but really thinking about opportunities and how to overcome some of the challenges. And so as a leader, having a growth mindset is particularly important. It really creates greater positive energy within your teams. The next is leveraging your strengths. I don't know about you, but most of my performance reviews throughout my career started off with, let me tell you what you need to do better next year. And for those of you who haven't started in the workforce, as within your career, I can tell you that's probably what you're going to expect, what you should expect. And so I want that to be turned around. I want you to be very clear on what are your competitive differentiators. What are your strengths? Everybody in this room has some unique talents. You have a way to contribute to a solution, to a challenge in a very unique way. So learn about what those skills and what those natural strengths are so that you can really lean in with them, really lean hard, and really shift the mindset of the conversation around development as well so you can really marry up with the right opportunity. And by the way, there's a book called, and you may have read this in one of your classes, StrengthsFinder 2.0. I don't know if it's 3.0 now. I have no idea. But I will tell you, if you haven't picked that up, pick it up. It is a great exercise. And again, it just gives you such a great perspective on what are your natural strengths to tap into. The next is seeking feedback. It's a gift. I think it was very early in my career, I had a head of HR who would say this all the time, and I really didn't understand it at the beginning, because every time I would get feedback, it never felt like a gift, okay? It felt like, okay, no, I don't think that was for me. Can I return that feedback? Can I re-gift that feedback? The reality is, over time, and as you mature, and as you appreciate why people give you constructive feedback, it is actually one of the greatest gifts that you, in fact, can receive. You receive it with humility, and you receive it with openness. And I can tell you that it is such a great element to build your career on. Now, you don't want to over-rotate on the constructive part. You want to have it balanced, which is why you have your board of directors. Embrace failure. You heard me talk about one of my big failures. Setback is inevitable. But resilience and perseverance is a choice. So treat these failures, personal, professional, as a stepping stone for growth. And you will absolutely reap the benefit of that experience. Staying intellectually curious and learning. I don't know how in this fast-paced world you can do anything but. You have to become intellectually curious to stay relevant. Things are moving way too quickly. And so what felt like news a month ago is no longer news today. And no one's going to force you, other than if you're having an exam. I tell you, once you leave college, no one's going to force you. Like, you have to force yourself to stay current and stay relevant. And then lastly, and I'll tell you, as a lifelong learner, one of the things that I think about being outside of corporate and outside of the day-to-day conversations about what's happening out there in corporate world is really trying to bring an informed position, an informed perspective to the boardroom. Like, that actually freaks me out a little bit, that I can become irrelevant. So I work really hard to stay up to speed. And lastly, of course, pay it forward. Someone helped you along the way, even if it was just to listen. So take the opportunity to mentor, to support, to open the door for somebody. So let me just say in closing, looking back on my 35-year career, my greatest pride does not come from personal accomplishments or business successes, but from the incredible people I have had the privilege to lead, to mentor, and very importantly, to learn from, many of whom I am grateful to call friends today. I'll close with this slide, since this is a business school, with a lot of nice color. I feel like I'm the only person in this room wearing color today, which I guess is a business school thing. So as you all know, and as you have learned, to run a successful business, there are a few things you have to do. You have to have a pretty clear strategy, right? You have to set short-term and long-term objectives. You have to have maniacal focus on execution. And you obviously have to figure out what are the right skills and team members to bring to help achieve those goals. You have to have, and more so today than ever, I feel. Oh, that went off the screen. I don't know. Okay, that's not a big deal. The engagement and understanding and navigating consumer needs and customer needs, the competition and market dynamics. This is basic, guys. This is where it starts. If you're going to lead and be a successful business leader, this is sort of the starting point. This is the basics. And so I'm proud to say that certainly I covered all this. I wouldn't have been able to achieve the type of success with my team if we hadn't been able to figure these things out. However, there are, from my experience, a few additional, sometimes overlooked ingredients that helped me drive deep engagement and motivation with my teams, turning seemingly impossible, and I can tell you some of the challenges really did seem impossible, into some breakthrough achievements, lasting impact, and extraordinary success. Some of this, I'll start with leading optimism and passion. The energy that you're hearing today, that energy is always present. I lead with great energy, great optimism about how do we create the future together. One of my favorite activities starting out each year with my team was setting headlines. If you've never done this, it actually is so much fun. It's about what do I want to read a year from now when I wake up in the morning about my business, 3 years from now when I want to wake up and hear about my business. And that level of optimism and energy just really trickled throughout the organization. And we had some hard things to deal with. Secondly, and I always say this, leading people is a privilege, and it's an incredible responsibility. And so maintaining a relentless focus on your team and on developing the talent is not negotiable. But also working outside your team and helping your team work across the organization by help shaping the organization's effectiveness by having clarity in things like roles and responsibility. It's about fostering collaboration at every level, eliminating silos, and I can tell you this has to start from the top. It becomes very difficult for our teams when the top is not aligned. One of the favorite words of corporate America, alignment. I try not to use it today, and I just finally used it. It's also about courage to stand up for what you believe and the persistence to pursue the right outcomes. And I can tell you, I had a lot of those opportunities, I'll call them, to really stand up for what I believed in and really stand up for my team. Being an authentic leader, one that's empathetic, can be vulnerable and human, creates really this connection and trust with your team. And I think my team really appreciated that there was only one Francis. I was the same person at home, same person in the office. I couldn't have time to figure out, who's who. And so I really tried to show that, in fact, you can, with the right support, manage your career and manage your personal life. So my team tells me stories of how I inspired them for that. So I really appreciate it because I didn't know that's what I was doing. They're always watching, as they say. But I never compromise holding ourselves accountable and delivering results. After all, in business, we're here to win. So lastly, prioritizing self-development as a leader, for me, was always very important then, and it is now. Because I think it signals to the team that really growth is a shared journey. And ultimately, and I think my teams had reputations over the years, that was a fun place to work. We got hard things done, but boy, did we have a really great fun time together. It was really about enjoying our journey together. After all, the hard work, the late nights, the meetings after meeting, time to celebrate, laugh, and truly have fun is what turns a team into family and success into something truly, truly meaningful. So with that, I close and give you a pause up. Okay. So we have about 20 minutes, to open it up for questions, and I'm open. Bill, you want to join me up here for some questions, or you can ask Bill or I questions. I don't have any answers. So. No, yes you do. Don't be shy. Come on. Oh, great. Here's our
I'll take the first stab at it here. Good evening. My name is Felipe Colon. I'm an alumna of the class of 2020.
Okay.
Currently, I am a junior relationship manager in corporate banking with Wells Fargo.
Okay.
And one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, especially knowing, having ascended so far in your career, in this world that we live in with hybrid work, with work from home, it's very difficult to not only create mentorship opportunities, but also find people to create sponsorship opportunities.
Yep.
And typically those two people are mutually exclusive. Sometimes they can be the same people, but typically they're different. What advice can you give to really get the best out of one's career and to take advantage of creating those sponsorship relationships with senior leadership when they're sitting in an office halfway across the country?
Yeah, it's a tough. Yeah, France answer it. It's a tough question, and I'll tell you, at both of the companies, and at Mastercard, this debate around work from home and sort of that natural tension with providing employees the opportunity for greater flexibility, which is obviously something that has been expressed by the employees. I think what happens early in your career, though, you miss to understand how those connections, how those hallway connections, how the coffee, how those impromptu, interactions actually help create and deepen human relationships. It just is like we're human people. So it's a tough one in this environment. But I would say maybe two things. One is with mentorship, and I tell you how many people would ask me, can you please be my mentor? And I said, sure, be your mentor. What do you want me to mentor you on? Oh, no, I don't know. Let's just talk about this and that. I'm like, no, okay. First, I don't have time just to have a conversation in the middle of the day. We can go out for drinks if you want. But it's very important that you think about what it is that you're looking for from a mentoring relationship. And then whether it's on the phone, in Zoom, or on the plane, you figure out how and who really would be a great mentor for you. But be very clear on what you're looking for from your mentor so that it's super productive for both of you and you get much more out of them. Maybe they turn into a sponsor, which is a best case scenario, because they're in the right place and they have that voice when you're not in the room to support you. But I would tell you that taking on different assignments across the organization, it has been my experience, you just by default begin to extend your network. So when they're having a talent conversation, I would always tell people, when you're having a talent conversation, if you're in marketing and the finance team doesn't know you, you haven't done your job. You need to be known outside of your immediate area. So look for those opportunities to be part of other initiatives that really cross. Look, it's going to put a strain on you potentially, because you're working already 45 hours, 50 hours. You may have to work 55. But those are trade-offs that you have to think about. But I think the proactivity and the intentionality is really important, whether it's live or virtual. Eventually, they're going to go more live. That's the trend. Okay.
So, hi.
Hello.
Francis, Luisa Perez, Director of Marketing and Communications. What are the advantages of joining a board, and at what point in your career does that make sense?
Yeah. I think joining a board, and I get, as you can imagine, as I said, I spend a fair amount of time mentoring and coaching individuals at different levels, and now I spend a lot of time talking about executives who are looking to also enter the boardroom. And my first question is why? Like, why do you feel like this is the next natural step in your career? And they may have an answer. And then I remind them that being on a board of directors of a public company is an enormous responsibility. And not everybody has the experience, has the skills to sit in the boardroom. in order for you to be an effective board member, you probably have had to navigate organizations at a very high level, been part of decisions that affect, very important decisions that affect the organization, its employees, part of a strategy. So not everybody necessarily has the skill set to join a board necessarily. But I think that's when you ask yourself, so why am I interested? And then what do I bring to the board? Because one of the trends that has started, and I think now it's slowing down a little bit, so people who are very specialized in cyber, in AI, in digital marketing. Digital marketing was a really popular, I say digital marketing, it sounds like a double entendre, marketing. Very important to bring those individuals to the boardrooms because historically the boardrooms have been CEOs, CFOs, retired CEOs in many instances. So bringing that fresh blood, bringing new talent to the boardroom was very important. So that created a lot of opportunity for individuals who may not necessarily have navigated to the C-suite, but were very successful in their area, CIOs, HR leads, and marketing leads. So, at the end, it's like, it's a job, it's an important responsibility. You're helping navigate the strategy of the company. You're helping mitigate risk and understand where the risks are coming from, and you have a duty of responsibility ultimately to the shareholders. So it's a big responsibility.
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for being here today. I think this has been one of the most incredible lectures that we've had so far. My question is, seeing that you're a strategist and a planner, what has been a spontaneous moment or event in your life or in your career that has led you to who you are today?
An interesting question. A spontaneous moment. I like to say that I'm spontaneous, but I don't think I really am. I know it sounds a little boring, actually. But I am a planner. Like, I set goals and visions. Like, I'll tell you, when I was 30, when I started my career on the business side, I would travel a lot. I have many, many millions of miles from all of these jobs. And I would see individuals, usually older, really older gentlemen carrying that black, I guess, luggage, sort of. And I would say to myself, oh, good Lord, that cannot be me, okay? That cannot be me. So from then on, I said, I really want to set out a future where I have the opportunity to make choices. And I have optionality. And if I want to stay in corporate till I'm whatever, I will, if I wanted to. But I'm going to work really hard to, at least as young as I could, step out of that to then pursue some other activities which are meaningful for me. So it's hard for me to answer your question because I'm not really that spontaneous of a person. Like, I always have a list and I'm always planning. And I will tell you, I think to a large extent, that's why I was able to achieve what I did, because I don't have any particular skills or obviously I have some skills because I've led big businesses with success, but it's not necessarily because I've been the most accomplished. But my ability to bring others along really, I think, has been probably, the secret sauce.
Thank you.
Hello,
Hi.
my name is Mariano Valero. Thank you so much for coming. I'm currently a junior here at Florida International.
Congrats.
But I was just wondering if you could expand a little bit more about that failure, because failure for me is really difficult, mainly the recovery on
Yes.
staying confident. I really struggle whenever I fail being confident. Even though I know my abilities, I know I can do it, that confidence really does take a hit. And I was wondering, what's your mindset whenever you do take a big hit and how you can stay motivated and confident?
Yeah, I have to tell you, it was really, it was a big hit. It was a big hit. When you have, in that situation, I had the vice chairman of the company who became the vice chairman, of the company. At the moment, she was leading the international business. And she called me the next week to ask me, how are you doing? How are you doing? And I thought, oh, shit. I should probably be doing worse than what I am feeling, because it was, honestly, it was that conversation that made me realize, wow, this is actually potentially, like seriously, a career-limiting, moment. And I heard her out, and I will tell you, I think this comes with, again, my personality. I am a fighter. Like, it's just who I am, and I love winning. Like, I'm super competitive. And so the idea that one event would define my future, which, remember, I had planned to retire early. I thought, oh my God, I have to get myself back on track. And let me tell you, it sounds easier than what it was. Like, at that moment, I was embarrassed. I was upset at myself. I felt so disappointed for letting my team down, right? Because I'm the one representing my team and my organization. And I do what I always do. I went at it like head first. And so I met like everybody that was in that boardroom to get a perspective. And I diagnosed what happened, and I got everybody's perspective. And I will tell you, half the people in that room were like, why are you rotating on this? Like, that was not a big deal. And the others were like, no, we get it. You really, you need to do this and this next time, right? So look, my advice is you gotta lean in. You gotta lean in. I think as you get to know yourself more and more, as I have over the years, you really do develop the confidence through your strengths and understanding, look, that wasn't a success, and that's okay, because I bring all of these other elements, to the party, and I'm uniquely qualified to do that. So you got to learn from the experience. You have to build from the experience. You can't ignore it, because you actually want to learn from it, but you have to have a balanced approach. And there's a term, I think it's called negativity bias. By the way, I have had a coach, like that entire 35 years, I've had coaches alongside me, because I don't know if I could have done it myself. For the most part, I had a lot of coaching throughout, which was great. And my last coach would tell me, we're all like biased towards negativity. Like, we're our worst critics sometimes. And so, again, stepping out from that and bringing the other people who may have been there, other people who, again, you trust and you can just talk through, that would be my advice. Oh, now we're getting energetic. I like it. We're getting more people. Okay, let's go.
So, am I up?
Oh my God.
Hello, Francis.
This is
How
my
are you?
college buddy.
Yes. And that's sort of the area of my question, because one of the things that stands out when I listen to you, right, is the time that this took, right?
Yeah.
Not that it took a very long time, because you're very young, but but the amount of time that it takes for expertise. And recently I've been thinking a lot about the time value of time as opposed to the time value of money. Mm-hmm. Because time's very finite, but we need a lot to get really good at something.
Yep.
And what it shows up to me is that you didn't go running back and forth. You were focused, but it took 20 years.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that, especially for everybody who's looking for the quick fix or the quick opportunity as opposed to a longer term view?
Yeah. It's a great question. I think that's why, Jose, I talk about not chasing the titles or the money, but rather really thinking about what those experiences and those different experiences can offer given where you're heading. Because sometimes chasing that one title is sort of, it's an immediate fix, but really doesn't have more beyond that if you're not thinking about it in context to where you want to go. So just like a business person would do and set a strategy and set a vision for their business, like, I encourage you to do the same. Because at minimum, whether it takes you 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years, the key is to be moving towards your north, what's going to satisfy you. I think we're in a very fast-moving world. There's so many new jobs today that weren't around, when I started 30 years ago, especially in technology. And people are moving around very quickly, and they're becoming very valuable very quickly too. And so, again, there's not, I think, one answer, and nor, I think, is it realistic to think it's linear either. Like, you're gonna need to go sideways a bit to keep moving forward. If what you value is the experience to get you closer to that north. Like, if you're just looking, look, I just wanna make X by X, like, you're gonna take on probably a lot of different roles, which you may not really love. And is that what you really want to do? Like, life is short, that's what I would say. Hope that answered at least my perspective.
Hi, how are
Hi.
you? Thank you for being here.
Yep.
And thank you for your lecture. So I've been in the workforce, and I actually came back to school to finish my master's in hopes of just kind of pivoting my career and industry within what I'm in.
Yep.
What would be, I guess my question with especially AI running a lot of resumes and things like that.
Yeah.
What's your, when you are applying for the workforce, a lot of positions are just street level when entering, and
Yeah.
like a lot of sales and things like that. What is your advice in getting more of that entry level executive experience, so that, because obviously you do need to start from the bottom, but the bottom sometimes, these positions that are being held with people that have been working for 10 plus years within the company. So what is like that leeway of not necessarily starting from a sales street rep to, and then just being like, to gain the experience of an executive, I guess.
Yeah. Look, I think, because we went from AI to different levels of the job. Not to sound trite, but I do think it's important to network in the right places with the right people. Like, it's not just, I'm gonna go network. And then you come back and you're like, oh, I met some really nice people, but I don't know how those people even can influence my future. So you gotta be really, I think, again, intentional about networking. I think networking is incredibly powerful. That doesn't mean necessarily just these type of events. It means what organizations would make sense for you to be part of. When I was an entrepreneur and I stepped off of corporate, I joined a number of different organizations, women leadership organizations, organizations for entrepreneurs, nonprofits, et cetera. And I expanded my network. So to me, a lot of it is, if you have defined the area that you're looking for, figure out, how do you get to the people who are in the circle of influence that can help you get closer to those opportunities? Now, that might be far-reaching for you because you're starting out, but that's why, you have the College of Business and the career counseling here. I'm going to put some pressure on these guys here, who should be helping and orientating you. But also, let everybody know, like, around you, everybody that you meet, it's like, is it clear what type of role you're looking for? Like, is that clear in your mind? Or is it just any entry-level role? So I think it's important, again, this idea of being clear on what's your vision, what are some of the steps that you think that you can take to get there. Certainly, I would include networking as one of those steps, and being very clear about that. It's a tough job market, out there, at the moment. And so I think you're gonna have trial and error, but it's gonna take a lot of resume sending before you land the job, and relentlessness, like perseverance, like that's just part of it. You have to embrace that. Go back to Jose's question, like, you have to embrace the reality that it's gonna take a lot of hard work to get to the jobs of your dreams. But do not give up. Do not give up, but be clearer on what you want to do. Oh, gosh. Okay, one more question.
Good afternoon. My name is Kiva Chester. I'm an MSIRE grad, also a board member. And I'm also a C-level suite with the company that I am, with the help of one of my mentors here, JR, from our master's program. So right now, my Northern Star, as you stated, is for me to be able to work more on the international level.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm the chief real estate officer for the corporation that I work with. And my question to you, what was it that you did to be able to pack up your skill set and your talents and your experiences to be able to provide that service globally, like to present yourself in a global dynamic?
Yeah, I mean, First, it was very intentional. I sought out to, if I was going to leave the bank, it wasn't going to be to go to another a bank or domestic business, as I would call it, because I was really interested in that. So I remember there used to be, and maybe there still is, like a publication that lists every single company in Miami that has an international headquarters. And so, like, I wrote all those names down, and I started checking like who works where, and so I was pretty intentional about how I spent my time figuring out like what would be and what would make sense as some of the next steps. So when I came across the opportunity at Amex, like honestly, sometimes it's timing and luck. It just is. And I happened to land in an incredible company. And I always say, as you're looking, especially early in your career, be picky about where you go work, who you work for, where you work. Like it makes a big difference. And so I started in my international career, and what I found was really important to continue to build a global career is the ability to work across the organization, to listen, to really try to understand the different environments that the teams around the world are operating in and respect the point of view. Sometimes when I was in the global role, we would want to develop this product in this way. And then I would have the team in Asia and the team in Latin America saying, that's never going to work here in Brazil. It's never going to work here in Japan. And we'd be like, no, it's going to work. And my team was like, no, it's going to work. I'm like, why are you forcing it? Like, you have to understand that consumers have a different environment in that country. Like, can we please take in the local input? So it is your ability, I think, to flex a bit and be able to work across, different situations that can demonstrate your ability to work with different people from around the world. But very specifically, gosh, I'm sure there are so many, I'm not a real estate person, organizations that tap into talent and that I'm sure would be very viable to become part of and expose, yourself and, to different arenas. Go out there, go for it. I used to tell people, just go. All right, I know we have two more. Is one more? Oh. Okay.
Well, first of all, good evening, and thank you for being here. My name is Roscoe Lecomte. I'm a senior here at FIU, doing international business and business management.
Awesome.
And my question to you is, now that you have such lengthy, storied experience, right, in leadership, what is something that, is different about the new generation of leaders, for example, people who are just graduating from college and joining corporate leadership, and what is a strength that we have compared to the past, and what is a weakness that we need to improve on?
What a great question. I all of a sudden I had my kids' faces pop into my head because my children are in their late 20s, and they're also early in their career. I think a huge advantage is the agility. I think you guys are very comfortable with change. I think you can step in and step out of situations much easier. You don't have the history bogging you down. You don't have the history of the experience bogging. You're willing to try new things, and you're okay with change, which is big. That's big. I think on the other hand, I don't know I would generalize necessarily, but I do worry about this whole work from home and virtual. I worry about that because business is a contact sport. It really is. And so if you're interested in business, you have to build relationships. That is the essence of how you make great things happen, right? And so I feel like there's an underappreciation of the importance of developing strong relationships, investing in networking, really investing in networking and putting yourself out there to build relationships. I think that's what would come to mind for me.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So I think we're good. Listen, thank you for all those questions. Like I said, my intention was hopefully to leave a nugget of wisdom somewhere through my experience. And I think, Luisa, do we have a reception now? And Yes? Okay. Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you very much.